should be there. Yeah, just wait, she's doing something.
I just gotta see if I want to mute. Are you there?
I believe so.
Hi, Jim.
Hello,
How are we doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Hi, Ted.
Hey, how we doing?
Like refrigerated butter.
Had Stu Turner as a pilot out, and he wanted to join as a guest.
Oh, so this is Larry. And we got 5:30 here. It looks like for roll call, I'm on. Jim, you're on. Bertucci.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Shane is
Shane is on vacation this week.
okay. And then Martin's on, Scott's on. We don't have Bob Webb. Alan, you're on?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, great. Ted's on. And Tyler, you're on, correct?
I'm on.
Great. We have a meeting and we got the roll call. Do we have any guests? Janet's on helping us with this. Don't know if we have any guests on with us. And for the next item, the minutes as printed by Janet on the website. If you've had a chance to read them, that was from the October meeting. I think that was our last meeting, October 15.
Why I'm not showing here.
If we could agree that we've reviewed those, we could accept motion to accept the meetings as printed on the website.
I'll move the minutes, revised minutes of June 18 and October 15, 2019.
I'll second.
Okay, and all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, opposed. Okay. Minutes are accepted. We will then go to our active agenda, which will be the election of the chairman. Since we finally had a meeting here in July, so we'll take nominations from the committee for chairman for this next year.
I move Larry Dolan be nominated as chairman.
I'll second that.
Thank you, guys. We can have a discussion of that. Any other candidates? All in favor of Larry for the chairman for the next year, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, aye. Thank you, guys, I think. I'm not sure, but okay, thank you. How about a vice chairman? Is there a nomination out there for a vice chairman?
I'm more than happy to continue to do it as the council representative, unless someone else does want the job.
I second that nomination.
All in favor of Jim Ratucci as vice chairman, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, aye. Okay, that motion carries. Jim, you are the vice chairman. Thank you for accepting that position.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm honored.
Okay, so let's move on to our next agenda item is the Wi-Fi for the airport lounge. And Janet, are you on to walk us through this one?
Hi, sorry, I was unmuting myself. Yes, I'm ready to walk you guys through this one.
Okay.
So I had contacted both CenturyLink and Benton REA to see if they could install internet services at the airport. CenturyLink stated that they currently had no fiber out at the airport, but they could still provide their internet service for a cost of $500 a month. Benton REA was also able to provide internet service. Their prices vary between $59.95 and $119.95 per month. And in the agenda packet, you can see the different internet packages that Benton REA offers. I could scroll down to that right now so you guys can see it. Let me see.
Martin, is this something that's been budgeted or it has to be budgeted?
It would have to, sorry, make sure I'm not mute. Yes. It's not a currently budgeted expense. We would have to look at the airport's overall operations budget and where we're at year to date, whether it would require going back to council for an increase in the expenditure, approved expenditure limit for the airport. But at some of these pricings, it may be feasible. We just would need to have a quick look back at it based on the recommendation of the advisory board.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yes, please, Jim.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm supportive of getting an internet service package out there. The manager and I have spoken, Shane and I have spoken, and we believe we might have the funding available through a possible source through the FAA. So we're looking at that right now. One thing I am concerned about, though, is that we're limiting ourselves with only CenturyLink and Benton REA. As an ISP in this valley for the last 20 years, I can tell you StarTouch Communications could offer us a package as well, probably equal to or better than Benton REA. And they provide a lot of service in this valley. So I'd like to see us reach out to at least one more provider before we take something to the council.
And I would certainly welcome that suggestion and that reference. Ideally, it is for purchase or contract of this type. We're best served by getting at least 3 quotes if we can. So I think reaching out to Star Touch would be a good next step. I'm not sure that I don't know if Shane had that information or not, but we could definitely look into that and see if it comes in better or equal to what Met and REA provides.
Is the internet, or Mr. Chairman, is internet something that we could go ahead and approve, and then based upon the price range we adopt in a competitive nature, then that selection could be made by either Shane or Mr. Casey for the purpose of expediting it, in that we may not have a board meeting in August, and so this would carry over till September before we could actually make a decision, then pass it to council, which would be quite a duration.
Chair, if I might, a suggestion on that would be as if the advisory committee wishes to make a recommendation that pending the pricing and financial feasibility, that the council be urged to proceed with approving that. That would be a way for the committee's advisory function to be served, make that recommendation to go forward, and then depending on what we're able to find out from Star Touch and what we were able to find out about the current status of our funding options as well as the budget, then when staff bring that to council as a whole, the committee's recommendation would accompany that without you having to meet again. Somebody's news feed in the background.
Okay. Okay. So if I get this correctly, then we want to make some sort of motion to go ahead and advise the city council to go ahead and if they have a competitive option out there, and for our recommendation is to go ahead and pursue it. Is that what we're looking at?
I would make that motion, yes.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
would
may
second that.
I on this issue?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Stuart Turner. I'm a tenant at the airport. I do a lot of business there. I'm in the process of trying to help bring a large business to town. That individual has already purchased a hangar. But, I just want to re-emphasize to people, not just the importance from a business perspective, but the safety factor that internet brings, so that we can get current briefings, because it's 38 minutes from my house to the hangar and conditions change. And if I want to change and file and do anything that requires the internet, I'm out of luck. I can't do it. I have to do it the old fashioned way with a telephone, and then you're sort of in line. So this is a safety related issue. And the other thing is, we have international travelers. We have to contact customs, and without the internet, sometimes they have difficulty doing that.
Yes, yeah, I agree with everything you said there. And on a note to that, one thing I would like to pass along with our recommendation is the fact that we do not want to go to the starter or the low megabytes. We don't necessarily need the top ultimate, but so many of the pilots will be downloading weather maps, and if we go too low on our megabytes, that would take a long time to download a weather map. So we need a kind of enough power generated out there so information can be acquired in a reasonable amount of time.
Mr. Chair, given the options from Benton REA in that range of download speeds, based on the committee's experiences, is there a range that you would recommend we look at?
Mr. Chairman,
That's a,
Mr. Chairman, this is Jim Restucci. It'd be my considered opinion after being in and owning an ISP for the last 20 years here in the Valley, that we would look at either the enhanced or premium packages that Benton REA were offering, and the same type of package maybe at Star Touch as well. So we're looking at $79.95 to $99.95, so under $100 a month.
That's helpful to provide a comparative quote and get comparable information as far as download speeds of 6 megabytes per second or 8, somewhere in that range. That's helpful. Thank you.
okay, that's all really good information. Now, go back, Ted did make a motion, and do we want to continue? Do we have a second on that motion to continue?
I seconded, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, you did. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Then on Ted's motion to forward our recommendation on to the city council to go ahead and with the process to get a Wi-Fi out at the airport, then all in favor of that, aye?
Well, Mr. Chairman, point of order, you should ask for some debate here and discussion, because I know there are members that probably want to weigh in on this.
Okay, yes, I'm sorry. I was assuming we'd had the debate there in between the motion and the second, but yes, you are correct. And is there discussion on this motion to forward?
Hey, how big is StarTech a satellite, or is it just a ground line?
Star Touch is a premier wireless provider, microwave wireless provider. They've got most of their stuff is located on the west side of the mountains, and then they've got towers on Rattlesnake Ridge here in this valley. They can push 30 miles with their wireless signal using microwave. We've been in business working with them, providing services to our clients through them for about a decade now. They've been very happy with them. And at one point we used them ourselves, but we outgrew their capabilities.
So would that wireless Wi-Fi be available throughout the whole airport?
Yeah, I don't see why not, because you just need to be able to, you need to be, it's a line of sight type solution. So you'd have to be able to see Rattlesnake Ridge from the airport. And I believe you can do that. And there's nothing blocking it.
I mean, if I had my computer down there, I just have to have my computer see it, or I have to be connected to it somehow, Wi-Fi.
No, what, and again, I'm a council member and not an administrator or an IT person for the city, but what the standard IT process would be to have internet brought to a location at the airport. We would then provide a wireless access point, a routed solution, a subnetted routed solution, so that you can have, public facing as well as behind the scenes operations. Because one of the things that we're hoping that we can get the money for from the FAA is the fact that we have an AWAS 4P that has to be connected to the internet, and that comes under operations of the airport. And so if we have to provide internet service for the AWAS 4P, then we should be able to cover the costs through the FAA. At least that's the way I'm thinking, and council's agreeing with me on this one so far. So the FAA may say no, we may have to find another way, but at this point, all you would have to do is be in the close proximity of the airport. You would see a wireless signal just like you're used to anywhere else, at a coffee shop or whatever the case may be, and you would connect to that Wi-Fi signal either with or without a password, or how the city decides to handle that piece, I don't know. And that's really in the weeds for a council member to get involved in, but I'm sure the manager or the airport manager can can brief us on how they're going to configure that in the future.
Well, Jim, this is Tyler again, but I guess my question is, how far will that Wi-Fi go? Because the port is going to build a hangar out by Edison Road. Would it go that far?
We have
You know, we could easily
ISPs
push it that
to-
far, Tyler. I mean, it would depend on, we could use, there are a number of different wireless solutions we could use, wireless mesh, for instance. We could create additional access points and connect them all together. There's a number of different things we could do. We could even use commercial radios and put a radio on the roof and shoot to another radio at the ports building. And now you've got a solid always on internet connection via microwave. There's a number of things that we could do to connect buildings out there if we needed to. I'm more than happy to discuss that with the city's IT people so that they get involved. We might ask them, Mr. Manager, to come to the next meeting.
And just airport board's information, the city's IT is, we contract for our IT services through Yakima County's IT department. And so consequently, they assist us with configuration as well as IT protocols and policies. So as we look at how this might cover beyond the initial request, which was for service to the lounge, we can certainly raise those questions with them, and also your question about whether they would recommend it be password protected or not, what some of those protocols are. I know in some instances, public Wi-Fi's are open, and in some instances where there have been issues with abuse or inappropriate downloads, they've secured that so that only people with appropriate passwords are do that. And I don't know that, you know,
And we
policy matters still.
Sir, we could also use a number of different technologies like they use at hotels and things of that nature, where
Right.
a person arrives, they open up their browser, it instantly takes them to a page in which they have to identify who they are, and we may have a password set up through the system, you know, like we did with the PIN number on the door. Well, the pilots knew what the number was or how to figure out what the number was, so we could do something like that. I mean, it's the idea is to keep honest people honest.
Right.
Mr. Dolan, this is
Yes.
City Clerk Renteria, and I just want to let you know that I'm getting a lot of background noise from Mr. Stiltner and Mr. Turner, and I'm not sure if we can ask them to mute their phones.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, do you have any more to add to that?
No, but I'll stand for any questions the committee still has.
Okay, everybody, Jim is the expert on this, so amongst us. Is there any other discussion on this motion? Then I'll call for the motion. Then all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Aye. Oop, something went in and out there. Okay, as far as I got from my ears, the motion passed, and that will be forwarded on to the city council. And there might be more discussion on that once if the city has any questions back to the committee here as far as what our opinions are on the direction they're going. Let's proceed then to the next item, and we go back to Janet again. She was going to remind us about what the airport advisory or airport board commission meetings requirements are, if you haven't updated yourself. So Janet, can you please?
Yes. So for this item, I attached a copy of the meetings, reports, and attendance section in our code, which you should be able to see on your screen. I just wanted to clarify that the airport board meetings are considered special meetings. Therefore, we will not be posting any cancellation notices every month. Let's see. So it's considered a special meeting. So we will post a special meeting notice when a meeting is scheduled. The airport board is required to meet no less than twice per calendar year. And that's just a little information that I just wanted to give you guys so then everybody's on the same page.
Okay, thank you, Janet. Does anybody have any questions for Janet on this topic?
No, well, I do have one consideration. Are you planning on changing all of SMC 2.50 or just this chapter? As the original author of 2.50, I want to know.
This is not a change existing. As I understand it, this is not a proposed change.
That's correct. It was just to clarify the information that's there, because there was some confusion that the meeting was codified, but it's a special meeting, so we don't post cancellations. I believe there was confusion with that because there was no cancellation notices posted every month. So I just wanted to clarify that for everyone.
Well, Mr. City Manager, this brings up a larger question, and it was in regards to our citizen advisory boards and commissions. At one time, the Attorney General said that all of the meetings needed to be codified, and so a lot of our code had specific dates and times, like the Planning Commission had a specific date and time. So if they didn't meet on that date and time, it was considered a special meeting. When I rewrote 2.50 back in 2010 or something of that nature, one of the things that I looked at was the fact that we wanted to have, all the boards and commissions meet certain criteria, and then only specific criteria was related to state law or something of that nature for like a planning commission or the arts commission or whatever the case may be. So if we need to clarify 2.50, I'd like to have a conversation about that with you and the mayor so that we can rewrite that, and so that this type of ambiguity doesn't happen again.
Now, happy to take a look at that more systemically and see if there are any other updates or clarifications that would be beneficial. As Janet was indicating, as we were reading and getting questions periodically about the airport board, it's under this section that there have been some cancellation notices sent in the past because there may have been a time in the past, I think, where this may have had some fixed meeting dates and times or monthly schedule, and staff's review of this one revealed that based on the ordinance as last amended in 2018, this one is simply required to meet no less than twice per year, and so we just wanted to reassure members that if they didn't get a cancellation on the airport board, that was normal. What we would be seeing is anytime there's a meeting called, we would send that agenda out. But I agree, if there may still be some ambiguity because of 7 or 8 different advisory boards, commissions. We want to make sure all of them are being properly noticed, and happy to take another look at that.
Okay, so now we can as committee members, we will assume that we are calling only special meetings, and the minimum requirement is 2 a year. That's what we're looking at for us, correct?
Yeah, that's our current understanding, but we'll certainly keep the committee and council apprised if there's any further clarifications needed.
And I'd like to make one more statement, Mr. Chairman, so that the committee members are aware. I think it's in 2.50040. The point being that the committee can meet anytime a majority of the members or the chair feel they need to meet. So although we may have to have 2 by calendar year per law, it doesn't mean we can't meet as many times as we need to meet in order to conduct business.
Correct, yeah. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that clarification for us. Yeah, is there any more discussion, any more questions on the meeting parameters? Okay, we will then jump to our next item, which is the hangar progress from the port's point of view. And Tyler, do you have anything to talk about on that issue?
Yeah, I do have a few things to bring and share with you guys. We have a rendered drawing from JUB, the engineers right now, of what they're proposing for us and what it, I think Shane got a copy and Martin got a copy of this. I don't know how to share it. I can't share it online, I guess. But anyway, we're looking at they're going to do it kind of two different ways, a 40 by 60 hangar with two 20-foot additions, depending on the cost of things. We want to make it as big as we can, but we don't think we're going to have enough money to do that. So there's a 40 by 60 with possible two 20-foot additions right on the corner of the entrance to the airport and Edison Road. And then this drawing actually includes two future hangars that go to the north, two future 60 by 60 hangars. It's possible. There's a drain field and a septic system involved in this, since there's no sewer out at the city right now. We're moving ahead. Things are going a little slow. The perk holes have been dug. The engineering, they just got this back to us this week. And so we'll put this out for estimates here in the next, I don't know, couple weeks or whatever. And at the next meeting, I should have a lot more information to share with you guys on the actual size, what's been proposed and accepted. And then if we have an actual meeting where we meet together, I can bring this rendering, or maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to share that. So.
Shipper, if you want to, we do have a hard copy of it, and if there's an updated rendering for the next meeting, we'd be happy to include that in the packet if you can get that to us a few days in advance electronically and or from Jay, and we'll make sure it's included for the committee.
Okay, great.
Any questions out there for Tyler on the project?
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Just want to thank the port for all the work that they're doing on this. Appreciate Tyler taking the lead and keeping us up to date.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Tyler, very much for the information.
Oh yeah, you're welcome.
If there's no other questions on the hangar progress, we will go to item F on our agenda with the Washington State Airport funding bill. And Martin, do you have anything for us?
Very briefly, there was a bill introduced by Senator Honeyford for a new funding mechanism for airport development. It enjoyed pretty broad support. It passed the Senate. It also got close to passage in the House. It made it all the way to the House floor. However, it did not pass the legislature in the final days of session. So it's a topic that I'm pretty confident will come back in the 2021 legislative session. Sometimes even bills with very broad support just don't make it through all of the process steps in the legislature before they run out of time, given the large volume of activity they deal with. So, and I know the latter part of session got very kind of intensely focused on the COVID-19 response. So quite a large number of bills didn't make it through. So we'll continue to monitor that for next year and see if it's brought up in the 21 session.
And that was the bill that would have given the hangar project another 250,000 if it had gone through.
No, actually, the hangar project did receive in the capital budget the additional 250,000. That was a different provision that Senator Honeyford and others helped get into the capital budget. This was a bill related to small airport development funding, and would have created a new funding program, I believe, out of the Department of Commerce or Transportation. I don't remember the details. So yeah, this would have been a different mechanism for future airport development.
It was a partnership, Mr. Manager, between Commerce and Washdot Aviation.
Okay, that's, yeah. I knew those were the two agencies that kept coming up. I couldn't remember who had the lead or how that worked, but yes.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the members on the on this airport funding bill? Any more questions? Okay, thank you very much, Martin, for the update. We don't have Shane Fisher with us. We do, if you downloaded his array of maps on the contamination out there, he was kind enough last month when we didn't quite have a quorum to conduct a meeting. He did talk to us a little bit about the maps. So I assume that maybe Mr. City Manager, that's on your desk?
Fortunately, I don't have the familiarity with the project to be able to do it fair justice, other than to say that, you know, as you can see from the drawings, there are a number of different scenarios that will be driven by what they find on site and how they need to remediate. I believe there is an item coming up in the next near term, next couple of council meetings related to seeking the Department of Ecology grant funding to support this, but we've got a little ways to go on that. So I'll ask Director Fisher to maybe provide a short narrative update to the committee members when he returns so that we can give you a little better update on all this.
Okay, those maps are very interesting. So we will move this item on the agenda to the next meeting, and hopefully Shane will be available and explain the different options and the things that are going on out there. Yeah, it is quite interesting. So are there any questions from members on the committee members on the on this maps or anything you're thinking about? Okay, then thank you, Martin, for the update. A real quick, we go back to Martin again on H, a real quick discussion on the $20,000 federal stimulus that was given to the Sunnyside Airport.
You pretty well covered it. The Federal CARES Act included a variety of local government stimulus and reimbursement programs. One of them was for impacts on airports. It was driven by kind of a cost formula determination, and we were notified through the Office of Financial Management that Sunnyside was to receive $20,000. We had to make a decision, brought to council for consideration. We were given really only two options for how to make use of the funding, how to apply for it. One is to apply for reimbursement for operational costs, and FAA defines operational costs as things like utility payments, salaries, normal costs of doing business for running the airport. The other option, and back up for a second, the reimbursement for operations, FAA staff advised was the more streamlined process. We would likely see the actual reimbursement come in 2020, and was a fairly straightforward set of submissions. The other option had been to look at essentially a capital infrastructure project that would have had to go through all of the normal planning and approval steps for a major building project on an airport. FAA advised that that would take their normal timeline, which would probably be several months to a year. And frankly, $20,000 wasn't going to go very far towards an approved project, any of the current approved projects on the airport master plan. So it really wasn't enough to be meaningfully applied in that arena. So we did opt to go for application of the funds towards operations. Councilor Restucci noted a short time ago that one of the avenues we're exploring is use of some of this funding to help pay for bringing in the Wi-Fi and getting that subscription service started. And we are looking at we can offset some of the costs to the general fund of things that are currently budgeted to be paid for out of operating the airport out of the general fund. Pretty straightforward. I'm happy to entertain any suggestions or questions.
Thank you.
I'd
Mark.
I'd like to speak to this if I may, it's Stu Turner.
Yes, Mr. Turner.
Certainly appropriate, as you indicate, the Wi-Fi expense. I have a question about in terms of maintenance. What is the current maintenance for weed control? The airport maintenance has really been outstanding during the winter. The snow removal. I actually commented, there was an article in the paper on that. Very proud of the city's effort in that respect, but we're a little behind the curve with weeds. I'm wondering if we could take a small portion of this and maybe step up our weed control a little bit.
So currently, two parts of Public Works Department have some responsibilities for weed control. The Parks and Facilities Division is primarily responsible for weeds in our parks and those areas. The Streets Division has charge of weed control in all of the roadways, sidewalks, rights of way, and at the airport. We have over 110 lane miles of streets, close to that in sidewalks. And we have, if I remember correctly, about 80 acres, or no, there's more than that because we also have mountain that we have to mow twice a year. Anyway, we have fairly extensive areas that we're responsible for city right-of-way for mowing. And so we do try to get out to the airport on a regular cycle, and depending on weather conditions, growing conditions, sometimes the weeds can definitely get ahead of us. If this year, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, we actually did put a bit of a freeze on hiring some of the seasonal staff that we would normally bring in. We ended up coming in one under what had originally been approved. Again, trying to keep all city functions under budget as we look at the economic uncertainty of revenues. This could, if I'll pass along to Shane that we are seeing that we are getting reports that the weeds out there are getting a little unmanageable, and see if we either can't redirect some of our existing resources or beef that up. Either way, this would be I think that would certainly qualify as an operational expense that would qualify for reimbursement through this grant.
Yeah, I'd add also that you're using primarily sort of contact type materials, and it may be appropriate, depending on exactly the drainage issues, to use something that's maybe got a little more of a soil residual, so that it prevents the germination, rather than let the weeds grow and then we kill them and they're unsightly. Dry weeds present a fire hazard. They break off when the wind blows, roll across the runway, accumulate on the neighbor's fence. Yeah, I think we're better off just back the bus up. Let's try and kill them as they're germinating.
And there are some areas where they have applied that technique. I know the pathway parallel to YVH, there's areas where they've attempted to prevent germination using different products. So we'll take a look at that.
Okay, thank you,
That
everybody.
may be something that we have to do either in the winter or before spring. So the time, maybe a timing issue with that, but definitely take the suggestion back.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Are there any other questions for Mr. Casey on the stimulus program.
This is Ted.
We will jump to item I that we've had several times here, and we just need to go over it one more time. And that's the possibility of a loaner vehicle out at the airport. And we've had these discussions, and you know, this evening we can talk about it a little bit more. There was a little informal discussion a while back, but Mr. Casey, do you have any comments on the possibility? I know Shane's not here as the airport manager.
I know we have, from what Shane has shared with me and looking at this, we're certainly supportive of exploring it. We do see the benefit for pilots or other individuals that are coming into the area and want to have the ability to, you know, maybe the pilot is simply bringing in a team that is coming in for some meetings, and pilots otherwise stuck at the airport while waiting for you know, his clients to get back, his or her clients to get back. So there's and you know, variety of others that might be able to take advantage of it. And we know of other loaner programs in other jurisdictions. So I think part of the considerations we've been looking at in facilitating this is, you know, what kind of controls or management will be required. There are devices and technologies that allow for regulating how far people can drive from the vehicle so that they're not flying here and then driving all the way to Umatilla or something. There are also mechanisms for security. So, you know, once the underlying question of how it would be funded and so forth, most of the rest of the logistics are fairly easily worked out, you know, with us and with our insurance carrier and so forth. So I think it's just been a matter of figuring out a specific proposal or figuring out how it would be funded out of the airport going forward. Certainly happy to entertain any new suggestions and keep it on our radar.
Additional comments from members?
Yeah, I've got one. You
Yes,
there,
sir.
Larry? Having some experience with this when I was a general manager at Nolan, Dakota, and Yakima, we had 3 vehicles that we would loan out. But one of the things we discovered was without somebody in the office to control the keys, to hand them out and take them back in, it was nearly unworkable. You didn't know where they were or what happened to them. Sometimes they wound up being parked in some strange places. And so we had to make sure that somebody was on hand to deal with the keys. And if they weren't on hand to deal with the keys, then they were locked up and you couldn't use them. So with the city and the way that they work, I'm not sure how you could have some kind of control over a car or a number of cars or whatever. As far as the gas is concerned, we did used to say, so where are you going? And if he was just going to go to town or whatever, fine. But if he was going to go some distance, we'd say to him, you know, you might want to put some gas in it for us. If you'd be so kind, you know. We didn't demand it. We didn't require it. We would just mention it. But it was amazing how many people would and which ones would. Pilots of big jets quite often wouldn't put a nickel's worth of gas in it. But little guys would. We also had a guy come back to the FBO one night, late at night, pulled up to his airplane, which was a big jet, got out of the car, and for whatever reason, it was still in reverse, and it backed up across the ramp and ran into a guy's 170, bent it all to the devil. He drove the car over and parked it in front of the building where it was supposed to be and left. Didn't leave a note, nothing. Our security cameras are what told us what happened. And when we called his company, he even then tried to say, well, I didn't do that. But, you know, so there are issues, no doubt about it. But there has to be some kind of control. I suspect that the way electronics are today, there's probably a box that could be in the office that could be triggered from City Hall to open and or close to control the key, for instance.
Right.
But, you know, if you were to call City Hall and say, you have a car that I can, you know, they could then open the box, you could get the key. I mean, there's a number of different ways to probably go about this, but control is important.
Agreed with that.
Thank you,
Scott.
Scott.
Yeah, no, we are looking at that. I think that is an important consideration, how we, whether we have a lockbox installed out there that is controlled by code similar to the access code for the lounge or something like that. There are vehicle telematic regulators now that can be installed that basically restrict the speed at which a vehicle can be driven, restrict the distance at which it can be driven. So all of those are safety and risk management issues that we'll want to take a look at as we think about how to operationalize this and still make it. You know, the idea being, let's get people a way to get in from the airport to the services and businesses and recreational opportunities that we have for them here in Sunnyside while they're waiting, you know, for whatever reason why, you know, that they're waiting there at the airport. But those are important considerations, and appreciate you bringing them to everyone's attention.
Thank you. Any other comments?
This is Ted. I rather than reinvent the wheel, you know, perhaps I know Goldendale, Tenasket, Okanagan all have courtesy cars, and maybe just contact one of those municipalities or all of them and see how they lay it out, what issues they may have run into, and how that works. But I've flown into all three of those places, and they all three have courtesy cars.
And Mr. City Manager,
Shane's reached all of those, but I'll ask him to follow up. Thank you.
Mr. City Manager, one thing also we might want to add on to the discussion about the electric vehicle charging stations is that if we did do a donor vehicle or a vehicle to be used from the airport, we might want to make it an electric vehicle.
That's a good point. Just for the committee's awareness, council just heard about this last night, an update, but yes, we are moving forward with installation of an electric vehicle charging station downtown on 5th Street between Codin and Varietal. This is a partnership between the port and the city. The port's providing some of the support for it, but the bulk of the funding is coming through a grant from Pacific Power. This will close a gap on I-82, a more than 60-mile wide gap between any public, sorry, siren just went by, between public EV charging stations. And so that could be a significant way to facilitate that, because we're not worrying about gasoline fueling or getting to a gas station. We have a single location, easily accessible downtown, and that might be a really good option to pursue. So appreciate that suggestion.
Hey, one other little thing, Mr. Chairman. Still there?
Yes, go ahead, Scott.
I think we really need to thank Ted Durfee for reminding us of the first rule of projects. Never create wheels. Go borrow a car. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So his idea about talking to other cities, that's great. I think that's wonderful, actually.
Thank you for that comment. Anybody else have anything to discuss on the loaner vehicle? We discussed this before, and it's going to be a continuing thing as we look at it and try to work out the different problems and see if it is feasible. So thank you, and thanks the city for continuing to look at this issue for us. Any other discussion on that?
Yeah, I'd like to follow on that. Stu Turner again. Ted's exactly right. I think Colville, which is a smaller town than Sunnyside, has 3 such vehicles. Our neighbor 11 miles down the road at Prosser has a vehicle. I landed in Roundup, Montana, a town of less than 2,000 people. They have a nice new Buick. And the earlier speaker about corporate pilots and larger airports, I understand that, but typically the smaller country airports sort of attract a better class of pilot, and they're generally going to be trustworthy, I think, in the local area.
Oh, thank you, Stuart. Appreciate that. Any other comments? Okay, then I'll jump to the last scheduled item we had, and that's just something that I threw in the discussion of the GPS instrument approach to the airport. Now, it's a dream, and we are small, and there's lots of qualifications, but I would just like to challenge everybody on the committee to educate ourselves so we know more about it. And if there is a possibility as we go along in the future maybe this is something we can do for our airport. So we need to look at it and not just say, oh, we're too small, it's too complex, because rules do change all the time. And I just, would be, I think, just such a good benefit to our airport is some time in the future we can figure out maybe there is a way to do that. Any other comments out there?
This is Jim Restucci. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you bringing this forward. When I took on the task of writing our first airport ordinance for the city, I looked at lots of different ordinances around the state for guidance as to how we should develop our airport and what we were looking to the future for. In 2008, the council had a retreat, and I talked to the council back then about our airport becoming a FedEx hub or something of that nature. I wholeheartedly agree that we need to continue to protect this airport. It is a diamond in the rough. The founders of our community were smart enough to put it where they put it. It's not encroaching on our city like a lot of other airports are that in the state. And I think we've got to protect this thing, and we got to do whatever we can to make sure that we grow it and grow it properly.
Well, thank you, Councilman, for your comments. Any other discussion on this topic?
Yeah, Larry, Scott again. I know that the Air Force is right at this time putting up a new GPS group of satellites. You aware of that?
Yes.
Anyway, they're supposed to be a great deal more accurate than the old ones, which were already pretty good, but more accuracy is always better. And I'm thinking that with the new accuracy levels that they hope to reach with them, this might be more possible than it was before, because again, accuracy is all important. And the other thing is, depending on the level of the GPS approach that we want, do we want a precision approach that brings you right down to a decision point, at 100.5, or do we want to bring you down to an altitude where you might be able to see the airport below the clouds, if you will, when you wouldn't, if, to bring you down to a 500 foot, almost like a non-precision approach type thing. And the other thing I wonder about, isn't there somebody at the Spokane FSDO that specializes in building these approaches, knows all the things having to do with, terrain clearances and circling distances and so on and so forth, that we could talk to? And the FAA, they shouldn't charge us to come and give us a little, consult on that, would they? Just a thought.
Yeah, that's a good comment. And that's kind of what I was throwing out there, that I think we all need to do our part and start educating ourselves and find out these things. And
because a GPS approach requires no equipment from the city or the airport. All the equipment's on board the airplane. We just have to have the agreed upon certified approach that's printed on a plate that says, go here, do this, do that, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? A roadmap, if you will. And that roadmap, I don't know that we even have to draw that. I think the FAA would do it. if we had all the other criteria met. And, but that's where I think we need to talk to a consultant out of the FSDO, the Flight Safety Office and the FAA, and I think Spokane's the closest place. I'm not sure. It used to be. That's where the guy came from. He used to give me my charter check rides.
Okay, yeah, great comment. And that's, it's going to give us a direction then that we need to start thinking about and educating. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Any other comments from members? Okay. Are there items, any of the committee members out there have any items they wish to discuss here that aren't quite on the agenda right now that they want to bring up or have us consider, which is item number 6, consider for the next meeting? First off, anything that we need to discuss that are kind of related to what we've been talking about? I really appreciate everything.
This is Ted. I would like to bring up something with and Larry, you probably have seen it from your house. The number of planes that have been coming into Sunnyside is really quite astonishing. And it's a lot of the medevacs is essentially what they are. And I think it relates to the COVID crisis that we're going through. And so one of the things that I think would be imperative is if we could touch up our lounge a little bit better than it is. It's quite often out of soap, sometimes out of paper, sometimes out of toilet paper even. And if I don't know what the vehicle to accomplish that is, but the city's done a really fine job on a lot of things at the airport. That sometimes the lounge gets left behind, and I know a bathroom is the last place a person wants to have to deal with. But when these people are coming in from, I've talked to a couple of pilots that have come in, medevac type pilots, and never has been a complaint about the lounge. But it's kind of like when you invite somebody into your home, you always kind of notice the things that need to be addressed, and I don't know what the vehicle to do that is, but I just wanted to make a comment on that. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks. And with Shane not being here and the manager, I'm sure a lot of that has been quite a bit of increased traffic, the medevacs, and also, I'm noticing a lot more people are just full stopping there and getting out of the airplane and then leaving again. So with the usage up, I'm sure maybe we need to touch up the sequence of going in and resupplying the lounge.
I'll bring that up with Shane and the facilities crew, because we may have had. I'm aware of this through the reports from fire department and the EMS services. With the pandemic and the stresses on the healthcare system in the valley, most high-risk critical care individuals are being medevaced to the Tri-Cities or from up over the Harborview west side, and so we are seeing a higher number of those flights. And it may be that the kind of the supply rotation that they had in place that kept things pretty current in the past are just don't keep up with what we have, with the volume we have now. So that's a good connect those two dots together, and we'll have facilities take a look at increasing their maintenance out there.
Well, thank you, Martin. Appreciate that. Any other comments, items from members? For the next meeting items, we have the continuing. Shane will explain those contamination. He's got some really good maps here with the different options that are going on out there, and the final decision hasn't been made yet on that. We'll have the continuing on the Wi-Fi update. We've turned that over, so hopefully the city council is going to run with that. And the continuation on the hangar progress out there with the port. The loaner vehicle, everybody's aware of that. We've got some good information on that. And then the challenge on the GPS for all of us to start thinking about that, and while you're thinking about that, and Councilman Ratucci was correct. We need to think about other things for the future out there. They may be some dream things of ours, but dreams can come true. And we just need to start thinking about some of these things, and maybe we can maybe we can get a little more done out there, because he's right. That's a little diamond in the rough sitting out there that most communities in America don't have anymore. Any other comments for items for the next meeting? On that, then the next meeting, we might have to think, I don't know if we need one in another month or so. It is summertime. We do need to be updated on that contamination maps, but that's kind of an ongoing thing that's not moving real quickly. How about if we just not absolutely schedule one for August, but just keep it in mind, and maybe through discussion amongst us, then we'll see when there's appropriate time when we need to, some information that's vital pops up again, and then, but definitely within 2 months we should get together and meet again, and just keep us all informed on what's going on out at the airport. Or does anybody else have a comment on that, or would you like to see a meeting within 30 days or in August?
Well, Larry, I would hope that within 2 months, so that would be like September, I hope we could, actually get together and look at one another.
Yeah, that would be nice for us non-office type that wander around looking at our computers now in a foreign matter. Okay. I'll
Well,
put it at that then.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add to that real
Yes,
quick.
Councilman.
Although I hope that we can meet again in face-to-face in September, I know that face-to-face meetings of governing bodies won't be allowed until phase 3 of the governor's reopening plan, and we're in 1.5 right now, and a lot of the state is now reverting back. So I mean, it's wishful thinking, Scott, but I don't see it happening, and that's just my opinion.
Thank you, Councilman.
Well, Larry said we could dream, Sure, it would be fun to talk about Shane since he's not here to defend himself, and he's too big to talk about when he is sitting across the table from you, but it would still be fun,
Okay, thank you everybody for participating in the meeting. Thank you, Janet and Jackie, for arranging this all for us. And if there's nothing else to discuss, and with your approval, then we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting, and thank you for all the great comments we've had this evening.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Good night.